Hello, everybody, and welcome to Anime Sickos. It's the podcast for geniuses and the only podcast where we take a look at the four pillars of modern misery: anime, gaming, posting, and jobs. I am Tom, an anime sicko.
I'm Joe, an anime sicko.
Joe, you played Roguebook.
Yeah, man, they got Rogue in the title. So Roguebook is a roguelike deck builder.
So which is the best game genre there is what you're saying. It's the game for making my brain shoot out the juice.
Yeah, all the little mechanics you love to think about are here for sure.
You draft cards, that's definitely for sure. Oh, Joe, I'm gonna go on a limb. Can I augment cards by slotting in different gems?
Yes, but
Sounds like a good game.
But there's a bit of an asterisk there. So Roguebook, I'm enjoying. Enjoying. It's fine, but my ultimate critical opinion after playing it for however long I have is it's good, but who cares? So Roguebook is made by Richard Garfield. This is the guy who made Magic. I was speaking with a friend of the
Magic the Gathering, not like he didn't invent.
No, they're one and the same to me. No, they're one and the same. I was speaking with a homie of the show, Swab Concept, about Magic. I don't play Magic, but I used to, which means like once in a while I get like an opportunity to look at some cards and grunt, and then like another person who used to play Magic can also grunt, and that's fun.
I have never played Magic, and I still will see posts when people post like, look at this rare that I just pulled out of a booster, incredible. And I will read the text box, and my brain will activate because I'm just like, oh, I don't know the specifics, but I can tell that there's some definite synergies being made possible with this.
Yeah, like you don't have any sense of context, but you feel strategy forming. Yes, that's the problem with Magic. So you shouldn't play it if you got this far. You're just leave it alone.
Okay.
But the thing about Magic is it's I don't know how old it is, 25 years, something like that. It's an old game, and choices about the game have been baked in forever, right? Because like there's 5 colors, they're not gonna change one of them. This is Richard Garfield's attempt to make a game where he's again like doing a card game, but there's no previous history, some existing rule set that they always have to build off of. Like they're completely free to do whatever.
Just fully bebopping, anything they want.
Yes. And what happened is they made a very, very good game where you play Slay the Spire with 2 guys.
2 guys?
There's 2 guys.
Do you have 2 different decks?
You have a single deck, but cards are tied to the person.
Okay. So you have like 2 drafting pools that are open to you.
Correct. You have 2 drafting pools that are open to you, which can be a little frustrating because it still does the 3-card offer, the classic Deckbuilder offer. Pick one of these 3 cards, and now you're dealing with 3 cards from 2 pools. So like it sucks when you're like, I need something for this other guy, and it's just the guy who's already lopsidedly strong and fucking up the momentum. The other consideration with 2 guys is that you have positioning. So in Slay the Spire, you just get hit. Like, you just can't. You just get hit. Like you're
just a guy standing there.
Like, the ironclad never moves over. And in this, the guy in the front takes the damage. Block value works very much the same as Slay the Spire. Enemies do damage. You play cards that have block. And then the higher your block value, stop that amount of damage. And how that works is whenever block is used, the character activating the block will move to the front.
Okay.
That kind of sucks when you want to contribute to the block number, but it would put the squishy person like up front. So you see how like there's just little logical concerns here and there. Like there's just complexity here. There's a lot of considerations.
And all the movements, I'm gonna assume like whenever, because any game where there's 2 guys and the order they're standing in is important. That means you're gonna have them moving back and forth a lot as situations change. And my understanding is that the method by which you switch positions is always triggered by playing a card. Is that correct?
Yeah, like 90% of the time. There is like a card that will maybe just be like switch positions, but like generally speaking, all of this movement happens automatically. Like there's a mechanic called lunge, which is no matter what your position, you move to the front to do the attack. So there's keywords like that. There's range, shit's cheaper from the back row if you play it. There's all these like sort of, again, position considerations.
This, from an outsider's perspective, having never played Roguebook, all I'm hearing is you're gonna be in a situation where you don't have the cards in your hand to make the guys be standing right.
Like if you suck, yes. So this is really the thing. I mean, this is it. Like, you know, when you play high level Ascension, Slay the Spire, you look at your draw pile and you think about what could come up, right? Like you do all that sort of thing. It's just a similar level of foresight when you're doing that. But here's the thing. I don't like care about them switching so much. Like it's a mechanic that doesn't bring me like a lot of satisfaction when it goes off without a hitch. Like obviously I like doing it because the right person gets hurt and people do more damage, but like I have to spend too much fucking time worrying about where the frog guy is and I don't love it.
Also, I think part of it is that it's a mechanic that, like, for being so central to the game, like, it's not cool. It's shuffling. It's like if the two of us were walking down the street and like we decided like, oh, you should be ahead of me. It's like, you know what? Actually, let's switch. Like, it's not cool. Like, we're not doing anything heroic when we're doing that.
Yeah. Well, if I'm in the back, my water magic will be cheaper. It'll be 0 cost, and I will lower the strength of our foes. It's actually fine.
Yeah, but you get me.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. It's not particularly exciting. You played Into the Breach, right?
Yeah.
That game is all positioning. Like it's just like where are your guys? That's the whole game.
Yeah.
That's it. Mm-hmm. My issue with Roguebook is it's just an additional complicating mechanic that doesn't feel amazing when it's pulled off great, but it sure like feels bad when you're fucking it up.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of cognitive load is my issue, I think. And that is, of course, in addition to my other issue with the game. First of all, the game is gorgeous. It looks fucking great. Like it has everything about it. The UI, the map you navigate, everything looks great. The other issue I have with the game is also, I guess, sort of like its appeal or like its big look at this neat feature. It's in between combats and encounters, you are a guy on a storybook map that is made of hexes. Mm-hmm. And you move around the map doing fights and picking up treasure by expending ink around you. Like you shoot ink around you and then like the storybook map becomes illustrated and you can now navigate to it and pick up shit in between fights.
And to be clear, this is a point of confusion for me. Like, you can see through the fog of war to goodies that are in the distance. So you can like see like oh, there's a goodie over there like 6 hexagons away. Maybe I'll spend my ink and I'll go over there.
Yes. So there are visible goodies. You can get goodies that are just hidden on regular hexes. They don't have to be revealed in order to be good. So there's also a bit of a slot machine mechanic. But all of this is to say, it's fucking Minesweeper, and I don't want to play Minesweeper like after the second boss fight. I don't want to do it.
So okay. I just gotta say, this is a peek behind the curtain, folks. Hearing the actual explanation of how the map works was such a fucking, like, I felt the scales fall from my eyes, because I cannot tell you how many times Joe has said to me, like, I hate when I'm playing cards and I have to do the Minesweeper, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know how that goes. Sure. But like, if I'm understanding correctly, you get like a finite amount of ink which you can use to like make a tile navigatable. Like, you can't walk on a tile that hasn't been drawn in, right?
Correct. Yeah, you have a finite amount of ink, and then like the strategy comes from using brushes, which come in different like area of effect sizes. Like you can uncover everything around you, or there's like stuff in a line, and what you have access to is random. Usually, it's drops from combat. So the game is about using these limited amounts of uncoverings as efficiently as possible in random shapes to the best of your ability. So you can get as much shit as you can before the boss fight.
And understanding this, well, this seems to me to be opening the door for a situation where you plan to go to a certain spot on a map to get a specific goodie, and then you realize as you're like 2 or 3 ink uses away, like you math it out, and you're like, uh-oh, I can't get there. Is that true?
Yes. Like proper planning would avoid that, but that shit happens all the time. The other thing that can suck is you can like cut a huge swath of ink towards something you want. But Tom, you have to realize that like every time you uncover a hex, it could be something. And the experience of cutting a massive chunk of the map and like you find like a nickel on the way there, that sucks. When you play Slay the Spire, you just see the fucking like paths. Like you pick, I want to go there because I want the shop. This is like you kick the dirt and then a shop guy might be here.
Yeah.
So,
but it might also be a big fight that takes half your health because you weren't prepared for it.
Right. So there's just a lot of RNG into it, which that's what fucking deck builders are. I know that, but like they didn't have to layer it on in such a minesweeper way.
So you mentioned that you especially hate doing the minesweeper after you've beaten the second boss. Speak more on this.
Well, just speaking from experience, the second boss is like, if I won, it's like barely. So I'm not in a good spot. And now it's like, all right, well now go do the logic puzzle again. It sucks.
Because if it's anything like Slay the Spire, the second boss, if you've beaten the second boss and it wasn't like with extreme aplomb, if you didn't like stomp the second boss, you are in a kind of a perilous position with your deck because like your deck just barely made it past that last check, and now it's facing an even more difficult challenge. So it's going to be very difficult for you to tune your deck such that it is able to, defeat these final challenges. So that's going to be a big pressure on you. You're going to have to be sharp as attack to make sure you don't fuck up. And then there's Minesweeper also.
Yes, and the thing is, it's two separate feeling. Like when you play WarioWare, it's like, oh look, you're gonna do this game for 2 seconds, then you're gonna play this for 2 seconds, and the switching is fun. This is just two things. They don't feel related. Like obviously they give you shit that plays in the card game, but it really does feel like, all right, I turn my desk and I play this different game, and then I go back to it when it's over, and I don't love it. It's still fun. Like I'm still enjoying it. I think the mechanics are interesting. There's specific choices that have been made that I want to see in other games. One thing I really enjoyed, you know how in Slay the Spire you have basically a Shiv deck where you just have something that's like creating a bunch of weak attacks that cost nothing, and they just sit in your hand.
Yeah, a machine gun deck.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Roguebook has a really smart mechanic where every character has some sort of machine gun element, like shivs or something similar. But the way those cards work, and this is going to make your tongue wag. If you're playing Slay the Spire and you have a shiv, now instead of having a shiv in your hand, your shivs always float off to the side in a stack, and they're there whenever you want them.
What?
Yes.
Wait, so, okay, hold up. You telling me that the little expendable free attacks that get generated through other cards do not go into your hand, but go into some sort of super hand that never is discarded?
Only for cards that have stack, and I believe each character only has one type of stack. And I'm using Shiv because like there's like basically a Shiv copy for one of the characters, because that is how their thing stacks.
Oh my god.
Like the frog guy's thing that stacks is called like headbang, and it's like free if the other character just didn't attack, and it gives him power. So like you kind of always have this stack of like little like amping up moves. That's kind of how his works. So, but anyway, the point is like you have all these cards that don't exist in your deck. They just float off as a resource, which is cool.
That is fucking cool. Because I had to tell you, with Slay the Spire, when you get shivs, you obviously are going to use them to attack the bad guy like that turn because, you know, it's free, it does damage, and then they go away. But there are edge cases where, for whatever reason, I'm not going to get into it, but you have a shiv in your hand and you don't want to use it, like something it would do worse for you to use it against the bad guy,
like as thorns.
Yeah, and you just have to discard your hand with the shiv in it, knowing that later you're gonna draw a shiv, which is such a low impact card when you have to draw it that it's like makes me puke.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'm coming around on Roguebook. This is the best game of all time now. I love Minesweeper. I can't wait to use all the special brushes to uncover them in strange shapes.
Yes. So at the very start of this, you asked if there were gems you could use to augment cards.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't lie to you. There are. Here's the problem, though. The game's use of gems, which is not unlike Monster Train, like you slot in stuff and it changes the effects. They don't want you to be nutty. They don't want you to get schnice with it at all. Like, for instance, there's a card called Dig, which is like a shovel, and you just dig up gold, and when you play it, it exhausts. And it had a gem slot. And there's a gem that is, when played, get 25 gold and dissolve. Now, Monster Train would let me do that shit. Monster Train would absolutely let me do that shit.
Yeah.
But because it already had dissolve on it, it's like, you can't have too much fun, dude.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that was upsetting. Like there's a bunch of things like that, too, that you can tell, like, the game is just like, don't, like, indoor voices.
Yeah. No exponential scalings. Numbies can't get big. Numbies can only get so big. If the numbies get too big, that's scary to me.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
It does get rid of removing a card with something better, which is you pick which card you don't want in your deck anymore. And then it shows you 3 cards and then 3 gems, and you could make a combination of them with whatever, which is usually a much easier value add than just straight up removing.
Okay. Can you just choose to remove anyway? What if I just want to get rid of a shitty card? I don't need to add anything.
I think in that case, I think you do have to take the card, but there's definitely events where you can just get rid of cards without doing the new Build-A-Bear thing.
Okay.
The game also has like permanent unlocks beyond just cards. There's like a talent tree with like permanent bonuses, and those always leave me like with a weird feeling when you're doing a roguelike. Like when you're playing a card game, which is like a single go at it, and it's like not feasible until you've unlocked enough shit. That kind of sucks. I don't love that.
Yeah. Like in Hades, like when you start a new file and you don't have any permanent boosts, it's still an action game, and like you can, and people have just beaten the game by like being really good at not getting hit. But like a card game is just numbers. So like if you haven't unlocked the good number yet.
Yeah, and like I look at the talent tree and I like immediately see I want the thing that makes one of the strikes not a strike randomly at the start of every run, right? Like that's an insane boost. And then I want the same thing for defend. It's just, I don't know. It's not, it adds like a grinding element to it, which is keeping me from probably enjoying the decision making of the Minesweeper, which I will always hate, and the positioning stuff.
There's also a part of it which is like the game is basically telling you that you're not having all of the fun. So like, yeah, you could be playing a better version of this game, but you can't do that yet. You're not allowed.
Yeah. There was also like day one DLC shenanigans, but I don't even care about that stuff anymore because, like, of course the shittiest thing can happen. Like, why wouldn't it?
And plus, you got money now. You can just buy it.
Yeah, but they ended up making it free. Like, they were like, we're sorry, you yelled enough. Yeah.
So, Joe, I also played a roguelike deck builder recently. Isn't it funny how we both do that independently of each other? It's almost like we're little hoggies, little piggies who go to the trough over and over.
And I'm guessing it was also Roguebook you played, and you just didn't remember anything about it?
No. I played Griftlands. Griftlands is a roguelike deck builder where the twist is that this isn't your normal roguelike deck builder where you just play your cards and you walk to the next encounter and then you play your cards again. Nah, man, that shit's old. That's from the past. We gotta innovate. Now you know what's cool? You know what's cool now? Stories, characters, decision making. A little like RPG elements. Interacting with NPCs. Yeah. Folks, Griftlands, their whole deal is that when you do a run, it's not just like, time to fucking throw my body on a bunch of monsters and hope I beat them all. When you do a run, you pick like a specific character, and it runs through a pre-authored story where each character like shows up in a different section of this same big city, and they all have something they want, and they all interact with a different cast of NPCs, and they, have to do little jobs in the process of getting to their goal, uncovering as they do the Byzantine politics of the underside of the city. Ooh, and also, all throughout, we have beautifully drawn art for the city, the characters, the backgrounds. The animation of the characters is really impressive. Like, visually, it looks great. It looks like a fucking cartoon, like an animated feature.
Yeah, what setting are we dealing? It's like it's futuristic. How would you describe it? Like, are we dealing with like spacefaring stuff, or is it just like Blade Runner shit?
So there's like, it's one of those games where there's like so much lore, but 80% of it is just referenced briefly as though all the characters aren't interested in it because it's just the way things are, which I think is the right way to do lore in a game like this. Where, like, there is reference to spacefaring, but it's like there was a spacefaring race, but they all died because they killed each other. And, like, there are relics from that race that, like, people will go into, like, dangerous irradiated swamps and, like, risk their lives to get because they are valuable. And it's, like, futuristic in that, like, you can have robot parts. The relics, like, from Slay the Spire, like, the abilities that don't go in your deck, but you just have them forever. Just passive abilities that you have forever. Those are... the equivalent to those in Griftlands are like implants that you place in your brain, and like you only have a certain amount of them.
You got brain slots?
Yeah. Your head's only so big. You can only put so much fucking plugins into it before it's full. And so like you can get to a point where you have to like go and pay someone to take one of your plugs out to put a new one in. And despite it being futuristic, like it is very grungy. Like all these characters that you're playing as are in poverty. Poverty is widespread. Wealth is wildly unequally distributed, just like now. There are definitely some like fish guys. There's fish dudes who just like, again, they're not explained. Like no one talks about how there are fish dudes because it's just like, yeah, of course there are.
I love fish guys. There was a really good fish guy surprise in Lisa the RPG. I was pleased to see some fish guys in that.
I haven't played that. I'm gonna have to do that.
It's good. They have some funky music too. You're in for a treat.
Cool. So Griftlands is pretty cool. You got your little stories. You're going around the map. It's an interesting world, an interesting concept, and really beautifully presented. But much like Roguebook, Joe, after playing it for about 20, 30 hours, it's just got too much shit in it. They put too much shit in it.
Too many things.
So here's part of it.
Okay, can I just jump in with like, based on what you told me, some initial problems I see?
Yeah. Give me.
You were talking a lot about stories and narratives, which are things that are like literally the opposite of like roguelike games because like the goal is not to consume narrative during a roguelike. In fact, if there's like a story, that means you're not comparing stats on two guns. Like that's bad.
Yeah. You have correctly identified a big issue, Joe, which is that if you want to do a run again with the same character, which, I mean, you would, right? Because, these games often will introduce new cards to the card pool. There's always going to be more mechanics in a card pool than you're able to implement in your deck. So you're going to be like, well, what if I made a deck that used that other mechanic? I wonder if that would be fun. So you're going to want to do it again. And also, there are permanent upgrades that you can have in Griftlands as well. Your character just gets better and better forever passively. And they're not like very dramatic. It's not like when you look at the tech tree that you haven't unlock shit in, you don't feel like, I'm so weak now. It's like I could be a little bit stronger later, and that would really be a leg up. I'm looking forward to that. So there's all these things that make you want to do another run. The problem is, every time you do a run, the story starts over, and you have to read all the dialogue again. And this game is really proud of all of the dialogue it wrote, and the writing's pretty good. It's not blowing me away, but it's very competent, and there's a lot of it, and it doesn't feel unwelcome the first time. But man, oh man, like the first character, Sal, her thing is that she was wronged by an underground crime boss, and she has to come back to the city and make her way through the underworld until she is able to get in the same place as the crime boss, at which point she will try to kill them. That's the story. Once you have played through that once, it's not it's not interesting enough to have to read all that dialogue again. It's simply not. And that also makes a given run in this game so fucking long. Like, a run of Slay the Spire where you win, which is to say as long as it can go, if you know what you're doing and you have the game on fast animations, which you should, it takes about 45 minutes. A run of Griftlands takes like 3 hours.
Oh, no, that's not okay. I'm a firm believer that a run should be a single session entity. It doesn't have to be. Like, I realize like you should be able to stop and come back. But if someone felt so inclined to do a run in a single session, it should not destroy their body.
Yeah, I did a run in Griftlands, and I ended up staying up way too late, because I was like, a run in a roguelike deck builder? Yeah, I got time for that. And oopsie, I forgot that I had to read a book in between the fucking card game. And that took forever. It also, like, a short run, having runs be short, allows you as a player to go nutty with, like, the decisions that you make. You can make a risky decision that might pay off big and might fuck you. Because what? I'm going to lose, like, 20 minutes of time, and I'll just start over. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm not rolling the dice on random bullshit if I've put an hour and a half into this run that's going pretty good. Like so when I come across a treasure chest that's like maybe fuck my shit up, I just leave it alone. Like I'm just not gonna do it.
It is manifested just as you say, Joe. Because like in Slay the Spire, when I come across a event where it's like, hey, you can give up some HP for a benefit, it might be pretty good. Or like you can have a benefit, but I'll put a curse in your deck, and it's like, you know what? Yeah. Let's do it. I'm feeling frisky. Let's take the risk. In fucking Griftlands, every single time I got a random encounter where there was like, hey, do you want to take a risk? I said no every single time. And so that part of the game that they designed to be fun was just not a decision-making space for me, because it was going to be no every time forever. And that's not fun, because it's just like the idea of reading through all this text again is nonsense. And I think there is a option that you can toggle on that skips all text, but that's just like, that's when the selling point of your game is that like this isn't the normal roguelike deck builder. This one's a story with characters and NPCs, but don't worry, you can turn all that shit off. It's like, then why did you put it in? If I can turn off the video game, you must not have thought it was that good.
The issue here, too, is the game didn't start as a deck builder, right?
Yeah, I did not know that. I had that inkling, and then you showed me proof, like a news article about Griftlands that said that, not as a something that someone was supposing, but just like the actual truth. Yeah, it didn't start as a deck builder, and you can kind of tell that because
it was supposed to be like a JRPG type deal.
Yeah, because here's how it works. Here's the actual gameplay. You show up and you have your little intro stories cutscene where you're talking to some person and explaining who you are. Then you go to a quest giver, and they're like, I have some quests for you. And this is where you get some illusion of choice, of branching paths in the plot, because who are you going to go help? Ooh, which faction are you going to take the missions from? The workers or the bosses? It's like the workers, idiot. But it doesn't matter, because the missions are just play the card game. And so no matter where I go, I'm playing the card game. And you do that. You go, you play the card game, and then afterwards you hear some text. You got to go through text cutscene, and then you have two more options. Which mission are you going to take? And then you go to the mission, and you play the card game, and then you have some text. And you see where I'm going with this. It just goes on like that, and the only choice you get to make is what NPC is going to be standing there telling you the text cutscene once you're finished playing the card game. And I think now it's time to talk about the fucking card game.
Yeah, you haven't said draft cards. You didn't say anything about picking cards. I'm getting worried.
Because it doesn't feel like it's the point of the game. As you say, the point of the game seems to be the text cutscenes, which is insane because you can turn them off. And also because nothing about the card game, actually interacts with that story. It feels like the thing that the card game is simulating could just be replaced by you actually played cards with the person. It could be anything. Mm-hmm. It could be you arm wrestled with them. All that matters is that at the end you have a text cutscene with someone, and then you get another choice about where to go. So the way that the card game works is that you actually have two decks, and this is the most mind-boggling example of too much shit, because you have two fucking decks. One is your fighting deck for when you have a fight, and this manifests like Slay the Spire, where you're standing on the left and the bad guys are standing on the right, and you have to hit them with attack cards. And there are also cards that give you defense, and that there are also power cards that give you passive abilities for the entire remainder of the fight. And there's all sorts of funny stuff, and you can stack buffs and debuffs just like Slay the Spire. And then also you can choose to negotiate with someone where you don't want to be violent with them. Because if you're violent with someone, they don't like you. And if someone doesn't like you, that's a permanent debuff until you've convinced them to like you. And it is possible to negotiate with someone and then they like you, and that's a permanent buff. So you have the negotiation, which I'm just thinking about trying to explain how negotiation works, and I'm about to cry. Because with negotiation is when you decide to talk, and you're two guys talking, and each person has a big ring around their head, and there's one big square that represents your core argument. This is this is your life, your heart. This is your health. If someone refutes your core argument and makes all of its HP go down, you give up you stop arguing because you've been proven wrong. And there's green cards, which are diplomacy cards, and there's red cards, which are aggression cards, and they're different, but they're basically the same, because all they do is they do damage to an enemy's argument, and you can target which argument gets
I'm getting so
applied
tired.
to them, and there are
I'm
some
so
cards
sleepy because of the words you're saying.
Some cards create new arguments, which are sub-arguments, which have a lower HP total than your core argument, but they have special effects that occur every turn that they can add defense to all of your arguments, or maybe they can do damage to certain arguments, or other effects that do on any number of things. And the opponent can have sub-arguments as well, and sometimes you don't want to focus on their core argument, even though that's their HP. Sometimes you want to get their sub-arguments taken care of first, because they have pernicious effects that can really get you down. And like the conceit of the negotiation is that like the cards you're playing are supposed to be like rhetorical devices you're employing. Like you can be a schmoozer with the schmooze card, but like the fact that it's supposed to be negotiation does not come across at all. It is just a card game where little squares on a ring shoot numbers out. And the fact that you're supposed to be talking is like, I don't believe it. I don't buy it.
So the mechanic feels unmoored from the action on the screen.
And Joe, you thought you were feeling exhausted hearing me talk about that shit before.
I would just take the fight deck to the talk.
But here's the thing, Joe. Here's the thing. You are not always given the choice between fighting and negotiation. Most of the time when you have a mission and you go to play the card game, you are able to choose, do you want to use your negotiation deck or your battle deck? But sometimes you are forced to use a certain deck and there's no other option. And you only get the chance to draft cards for a deck to make it better after you have won an encounter with it. So if you are battling over and over and over and you're making your battle deck really good and have never used your negotiation deck, that means that when you get to like midway through the run and there's a mandatory negotiation you can't get out of with battling,
you just eat shit.
You eat shit because you're playing a starting deck with all the shitty baby cards. You haven't got any good ones yet, and then you fucking lose.
It's like a little... It seems a little hot potato because you have to be bouncing between if you want decent growth on both vectors.
And like that part in itself, having the two decks that like play different games and you have to balance both of them, that is not in itself overwhelming. That, to me, that like when I heard about that, I thought, how fun. I'm excited. Can't wait to try that out. The problem is that this game is fucking addicted to keywords. There are so many goddamn keywords, and they're so esoteric. Like, in Slay the Spire, the keywords are, like, vulnerable. Makes you take more damage.
Weak. You hit less.
Yeah, like, you hit less. Poison. You are poisoned. Like, they're very straightforward, and there's not many of them. And, like, there are keywords that are not specific but meant for a character. Like strength is a keyword that makes your attacks do more damage. One strength means all your attacks do one more damage, and it's most common for one of the characters. That character gets a lot of cards that increase strength, and they have a lot of cards that have inordinate benefits from having strength. So obviously, well, that's the character that strength is meant for, but it's not unique to them. Every character can gain strength. It's just that's the character that gets the most benefit. In this game, every single character has keywords, an entire set of them, that are completely unique to them. And not only that, the keywords, none of them switch over between battle and negotiation. So there's negotiation keywords. There's so fucking many of them. There's battle keywords, so many of them. And, like, they're... Joe, let me tell you about influence, the influence keyword. Now this is going to make you lose your mind, because I'm going to try to say this as succinctly as I can. Influence is a negotiation keyword. A card that has the influence keyword will cause a influence sub-argument to be created. Now, if you play multiple cards with this keyword, that will allow you to create a influence sub-argument with multiple stacks. When a turn ends, half of the stacks of the influence sub-argument will decay, and when there are 0 stacks, the argument will go away. The argument also has an HP meter that, if destroyed, will make all of the stacks go away. When you have an influence sub-argument active, all diplomacy cards, which are the green cards, that do damage, which normally would do a number from a range of possible damages, will all do the maximum damage possible. So, for example, a green card that normally would do 2 to 4 damage will always do 4 damage when you have an influence sub-argument active. That's the kind of complexity that these keywords regularly get to.
Did you say stacks don't go down by 1?
Oh, Joe, you have also hit on one of the most jaw-dropping design decisions that this game made. And when you were talking about how Roguebook doesn't let you get nutty with it. Like, I was just like, they're all doing it now. No one wants you to get nutty because, is this especially awful in the battle deck? Because in Slay the Spire and all sorts of games, when you apply stacks of debuffs to an enemy and they activate, they go down by 1.
Yeah, because a turn has passed. 1 stack is removed after 1 turn. It's a beautiful little proof.
Exactly. And so, like, the most common example of such a thing in Slay the Spire is poison. Poison, which is the favored thing of the silent character. So if you were to apply 6 poison to an enemy, when that poison activates, it will do 6 damage to them, and then it will decay to 5 poison. And on the next turn, it will do them 5 damage. And then on the next turn, it'll do them 4 damage. And this is great because 6 poison, if you actually math it all out, that's 21 damage, which is a lot of damage, and 6 poison is not that hard to apply. So that's a lot of free damage that you can get off of an enemy just by stacking poison and letting those stacks tick down 1 by 1. And it's even better because if you get to a nutty number of poison, if you 6 is a pretty low number, but you can get fucking nutty. If you get the cards that allow you to get exponential scaling, you can get like 50, 100, 200 poison, and then it's just like you're just melting everyone. There is a keyword called bleed in Griftlands that works exactly the same as poison. It's the same thing. It ticks at the start of the enemy's turn, and it does damage to them, and then the stacks decay. So I saw that, and I'm like, it's my first run. I'm learning Griftlands. I'm seeing bleed, which is the same as poison. I know how a poison deck works in Slay the Spire. So this is going to be my crutch. It's going to be my way to quickly slip into this new system and see some success, because I'm going to make a poison build just like I would in Slay the Spire. Because poison is good. 6 poison, why, that's 21 damage. And I'm realizing, like, oh, damn, with these cards, I can get 6 bleed pretty easily. So, like, that would be 21 damage in this game as well. I'm like, that's pretty good damage. I think that I've got it. And then I start to realize that the enemies aren't dying as fast as I'd like. I'm taking a lot more damage than I should because the enemies just aren't fucking dying on time. And I'm wondering what's causing this. And then I mouse over my stacks of bleed just to see what's going on. And that's when I see that in Griftlands, all stacks decay by half every single time. So if I apply 6 bleed, it does 6 damage, and then it doesn't tick down to 5, it ticks down to 3, and then it'll do 3 damage, and it will tick down to 1. So what I thought was 21 damage is fucking 10 damage. And this is just like, this really does feel like inside voices, kids. Like, they are so scared that I'm going to go nutty with it and make a deck with exponential scaling that allows the numbers to get huge, and I melt all my opposition without challenge. And I understand why, if you're a game designer, you're scared of this. You don't want your players to be melting all the challenges and using exponential scaling to make the game a joke. But here's the thing. Getting to that, it's not trivial to get to that space with the deck. Like, you have to be good and lucky to get a deck that can do that. And when you do, it feels so thrilling to see the numbies get huge. And then this game doesn't trust me with that. It's like, no, oh gosh, that's too much. They have to decay by half. You have to have no bleed really fast. And it just, it made me so mad.
That's fucked up. We have rights. You can't just say stacks go down by half.
It's so fucked, dude. I mean, like, we talked about when we invented the perfect method to judge a game. One of the criteria was, does it have exponential scaling? If it does, it's a good game. If it doesn't, it isn't. And, yeah, it doesn't. Like, let me tell you about another keyword that just, like, blew my mind when I saw it. As soon as I saw cards with this keyword, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, really? You're expecting me to work with this? This is, fine. So, one keyword is adrenaline. And like all keywords in Griftlands, when you see it, you have no clue what it could mean.
Does it make you think about the better Slay the Spire card?
Yeah, it makes you think. Slay the Spire card, which lets me draw and have more fucking mana that turn. But no, it's not like weak, where it's like, I bet this keyword makes the character weak. No, it's adrenaline. Who knows what it fucking means? Here's what it means. When you have stacks of adrenaline, attack damage is increased by the number of stacks. So, if you were to stack 3 adrenaline, all your attacks are going to do 3 more damage than they would normally. Okay? Makes sense. So when I saw some of these cards that were giving me like 1 or 2 adrenaline, I'm like, that seems like a pretty small amount. It feels like if I was going to get any benefit out of this keyword, I would really have to invest very heavily into adrenaline cards and make that like my main mechanic. I don't know if I want to do that. Let's give it a try. Now, Joe, I mentioned that the game doesn't want you to get nutty with it and makes stacks decay by half. Adrenaline has a special effect where at the end of your turn, all of your adrenaline goes away. So there were turns when I would have a bunch of adrenaline cards and I'd have like 1 weak attack in my hand. And so I would get some adrenaline, play the weak attack, which now augmented is a mediocre attack. And then all of my adrenaline would go away. And I'd be like, great keyword. Great card game.
That's just flex.
It's fucking flex from Slay the Spire.
It's flex. I mean, we're talking about temporary strength.
It's flex from Slay the Spire, except with flex, that's 1 card and you get 4. Adrenaline, you have to like use multiple cards and there's like, it's so fucking, it's such a headache when you could just do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Like, you could just draft, do a lot of damage. And that works just as well. I mean, like, here's another thing about this shit where there's just too much. When you win a run, even when you lose a run, when you complete a run, win or lose, you have unlocked experience points based on what you've accomplished during the run. And then if you have reached a certain threshold, boom, you've unlocked new cards for the card pool. Now, I always am wary of this because, especially in a new roguelike deck builder that you haven't played before, you're like really trying to come to grips with like, okay, what is the card pool? Like, what is out there to work with? Because the more you know about like what's out there, the more informed of a choice you can make about what you put in your deck. Yeah? Okay. So when you add new cards to the card pool, it's like, well, I sure hope that they don't put anything crazy in there. I hope it's just sort of like variations on a theme. It's the kind of stuff I've seen before, but a little bit better, or with a little bit of a different focus, or something like that. Or, what have you. When you unlock cards in Griftlands, you unlock like new keywords? Like, they introduce new keywords that weren't there before, and they like introduce like weird combo cards, like cards that on their own don't do anything, that require your deck to have other cards, and especially require you to draw that card on the same turn as the other card. And I'm just like, all that this has done, like, far from this feeling like a reward for me doing well, it feels like the card pool has just gotten worse. It means that it feels like the next time I see 3 cards that I get to choose from, there's a higher chance that one of them is going to be some shit I don't care about. And it's just that, in addition to how long it is to do one of these runs, just absolutely killed my desire to ever do it again. So what ended up happening was I won the story on the first run for all 3 characters, and I put that game away. I did not touch it again. And it really does. Like, the story part just is not feel at all like it's from the same game as the card game. Because, like, the game really wants to be a deep world with this, like, rich lore and characters where you're, like, interacting with the characters, and the decisions you make decide whether or not they like you or not. And, whether or not you're liked or not makes different factions behave differently towards you. So you can reach your goal via different methods, via different people. Maybe the people who on one run were your great allies are now your enemies. Isn't that something? But what actually is the game is the shitty card game, where it's like, what if Slay the Spire had a bunch of extra shit? And I think that's sort of the thing that we're dancing around, is that Slay the Spire is the best card game, and that they shouldn't have made another one.
Oh, man. I went back to it. I did. I'm sorry, I did, because in preparation for this episode, I just was comparing everything mentally to Slay the Spire, and then I was like, well, let's fucking play that again. And would you believe it? It still fucking shreds. It's so good. It looks like shit. It has no music.
I mean, it has music, but it's like terrible.
It's like, okay, the music is like haunted house wind sounds.
Yeah, it's like
it looks like a Newgrounds game. I love it. It's not a slight, because you can play it on anything, and that's good.
Yeah, I mean, like when you compare it, especially to Griftlands, where like these characters, again, they look like they're like fully animated characters from a feature film, and like every attack that you play has like a custom animation where like the guy does the thing depicted on the card. Like there's a fucking one of the characters is a drunkard, and there's like a bottle smash attack, and like you can see him run with a run cycle over to the bad guy, smash a bottle over their head, and the enemy reacts. And it's like, wow, there are no animations in Slay the Spire. Everything is static. It looks bad. Also, like everything's static, and also the drawings are shitty.
I love them. Not only are they shitty, but correct me if I'm wrong, but if you do really well, you can unlock the shittier original art.
Yes.
Which is, of course, better.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it? Is it purity of vision? I feel like it's purity of vision.
It is. It's like Counter-Strike to all other first-person shooters. Every first-person shooter is just Counter-Strike with some shit on it. And like if you just rubbed the shit off of it, and you got down to the actual core of the shooting experience, the question is always like, well, is this better than Counter-Strike? Answer's generally going to be no.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like every roguelike deck builder, Slay the Spire just got it in one. Like they just made the best one, where the only thing you do is you play the card game and you draft cards and you get items and you fight harder enemies. And that's all you fucking do. There's nothing else. And every other game in the genre is going to be Slay the Spire plus some gimmick attached. Like Monster Train, the game we love.
We love it, but
it's just Slay the Spire with a gimmick attached. It just so happens that the gimmick is the best one of all the gimmicks.
Which is Slay the Spire plus doo-doo stupid. It's just you dumb shit happens. It's fun.
Doo-doo stupid. Oh, fuck. I mean, like... And, like, it's easy to see why people would keep making and keep purchasing and playing, like, the versions of Slay the Spire that have a gimmick attached.
Yeah, because that's what we're doing, and it's normal. It does not mean that you have, like, a weird brain.
Yeah, you have a good brain, actually. But, like, it's just because Slay the Spire... Man, it really does look like shit. Like, I made the example of, like, Slay the Spire is like a blind samurai who grew up on a mountain raised by toads. And he's, like, the best at katana, but, like, he doesn't know how to talk. And if you, like, hang out with him, he would just go, like, Whereas, like, Griftlands is, like, a storyteller and jester who learned, like, the art of calligraphy. And, like... He's technically still a samurai. He does have a katana. But, like, Slay the Spire is so much better at sword. But, like, if you were to choose one to hang out with, obviously you would pick the one who knew about talking. Like, that's that's the analogy from where I'm sitting.
Yeah. And, like, I love the genre. I go back to it all the time. And, like, I feel like I'm chasing a high from that first Slay the Spire a lot of the times. And, like... I don't know, when I first played Slay the Spire, it's like I came across an ancient tablet, and it had this mysterious question, and like I didn't know what it was asking, but I could tell this equation, which was etched on this important stone, had such significance that like if I figured it out, like I would get such insight into the world and human knowledge.
Yeah, you would become the Buddha. You would achieve nirvana and understand everything. And you saw this tablet, and you were like, "I must go on a journey to uncover the knowledge required to solve this equation." And the journey was
Roguebook, play Monster Train. Yeah, it's all those. And then I returned to the tablet, And then I realized that like it was just like dusty in the corner, and the equation is solved. It's like I just didn't dust it enough. It's all fucking there. It's Slay the Spire. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just an Aztec kid's homework. He finished it. I mean, it never was in doubt. It was always Slay the Spire. And you know what it is? You know what it really is? Is Slay the Spire is just Cookie Clicker. And I've talked in the past about how Cookie Clicker is the ultimate game.
Yeah,
because it's just game design stripped down to
dopamine.
To the nub.
It's just like all I want is my brain to light up as if I had a little bit of sugar water, and Cookie Clicker is sugar water.
Yeah, it literally the only thing that you can do in that game is make the numby go up. Every single piece of design in the game is made with the intention of allowing it to make the numby go up more. And Slay the Spire is just like the absolutely perfect, boiled down to the distilled essence, a diamond forged in the pressure of 1,000 tons of earth.
The cards are so much more simply and beautifully designed. There's like no fat on these at all. When you're talking about like what was it, you have to build up your tax score and shit. Like I hate that. Like I look at Headbutt and I'm like, damn, that's a great card.
9 damage. That's a pretty high amount of damage from a single attack card. That's better than a strike by 50%. That's like a strike with vulnerable on the enemy. And in addition, I get to take 1 card out of the discard pile and put it on top of my fucking draw pile? Holy shit, I can recur my most valuable cards.
Yeah, the thing that's nice about Headbutt is that even if you don't pick it, like you don't need it or it happens too late or whatever, you still get to do the thought exercise of like, what's the funniest thing I can pull every shuffle? Like, you get to play that mental game.
Mm-hmm. And Slay the Spire is the only deck builder, the only roguelike deck builder other than Monster Train that I actually enjoy playing on the higher difficulties. I play Monster Train on the higher difficulties because the game's doo-doo stupid and it's, like, impossible to lose on the lower difficulties. So, like, in order for it to become a game, you have to be at, like, something like 10, I think.
Or you have to like intentionally not go for easy synergies.
I'm never going to do that. But like with Slay the Spire, the game is just so fucking sharp. Everything is so tight. It's just absolutely like perfection. The numbers are low. So like you really have to struggle and strive for every benefit you can. You have to really make sure that like, what am I doing to scale? I need to be able to scale because these numbers are so low that if these numbers aren't scaling, there's nothing that's going to make it work. So it forces you to be so exacting with the choices you make. And turning up the difficulty on that sort of makes the puzzle more thrilling because you know that you can solve this puzzle. It's not like a crapshoot. Like you can do this.
It's like the crossword getting harder throughout the week.
Exactly. And it's like, you know that like the harder crossword is going to be really difficult. But like if you're into crosswords, like the challenge is the fun of it. And like the accomplishment from getting it done feels amazing because you know how hard it was. And when you up the difficulty and Slay the Spire to the crazy high ascension levels and you realize that like you're getting to a point where you can't make any mistakes. And when you still win, because of that, you know that this was all on you. There wasn't any dumb luck. You didn't get the doo-doo stupid card that was like crazy unbalanced. You didn't get a shark with abs who gives everyone frostbite. Like you just, every time you had a chance to draft a card, you were able to determine which had the highest utility.
Yeah,
you just did it right.
You're leaving out the most important part, which is to get to that point you just described. You have to look at high value cards in the face and say, not right now.
Oh yes, that like when you first do that, that is like you feel like you have become like more than human, more human than human.
Yeah.
Just when you see the card with the bigger number and you're like, that's a pretty high value card, but right now my deck needs block, and you take the block card and it works and you win. And that's another thing about Slay the Spire that is like Counter-Strike, which is that like if you're good at Slay the Spire, you're good at all roguelike deck builders. Because like Slay the Spire puts you through boot camp with regard to understanding the value of a card. And so it doesn't even matter what the cards say on it. As long as you understand the fucking fundamentals of that, they're all going to fall into place.
Yeah. I mean, the real skill for deck builders is the same skill that, and I'm disgusted to say this, like day traders have, which is like identifying value and going, oh, that one. Like, it's the same shit. Of course, like, our hobby doesn't fuck everything up.
Our hobby doesn't make us money. I didn't know about this shit. Wait, we could have been making money this whole time? I could have been drafting, like, thousands of dollars?
There is, like, no way you could present financial information to me that would allow me to engage with it at the level that seeing, like, Headbutt and then Rampage together. Like, I will, if I've given, I will move heaven and earth to make that combo work. There's nothing you can do to make me care about, like, numbers about stocks, though.
Yeah, it's true. Like, we always say, like, oh, we're so stupid for not doing the ghoul hobby that makes you money. But, like, it's really fucking boring, dude.
It is.
So I guess what we're saying, the point of this episode is that just there's never going to be another good roguelike deck builder. They made the only one.
I mean, we'll keep looking.
Yeah, we're stupid for trying, and we will keep trying.
I have to try new games where I have to pick one of 3 cards, but they absolutely cannot be collectible card games. That is filthy shit.
I wonder, like, what... They all just have to be Slay the Spire, but with a little gimmick on it. And then I will hoot, and I'll go like, ooh, I love the gimmick. And then I'll play for 10 hours, and I'll be like, the core gameplay loop of this isn't as sound as Slay the Spire's. And I'll turn it off.
Age of Empires 3 had cards in it, and I didn't have a good time, but I played that one a lot for that reason. I just gotta have the cards.
Cards are so good, dude. They say what they're gonna do right on them, and then you play it, and it does it. I think that I don't have to remember what button to push. I just play that shit. Joe, I don't know if you know this, but in Slay the Spire, Glass Knife does 8 damage twice. Yes, it goes down in damage every time you use it, but how many times are you going to cycle through your deck in a combat encounter anyway?
I have leaned on Glass Knife so many... Glass Knife is like a run saver because it's just like... By the time it has a reduced enough effectiveness, if you haven't won, you're dead anyway, so whatever.
Yeah. And when you upgrade that shit, Joe, it goes from doing 8 damage twice to 12 damage twice, and you get 2 uses of it at higher value before it even hits the normal amount that it used to be. And that shit's a high value upgrade. Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, an Anime Sicko.
I am Joe, an Anime Sicko.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at ShariaUncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos, or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.